Hey everyone, it's Wingspan TT, and if you're watching, you know what time it is. It's time for actual paper Magic the Gathering. And today I'd like to talk about a draft I did for Return to Ravnica. It was a draft that I went to at Somerville's The Only Game in Town in Somerville, New Jersey. And I want to talk about my draft deck, what worked, what didn't work, and what you can learn about it. And today I ended up deciding to draft Rakdos. So that's black-red. Okay, I'm just showing most of the cards. I just deconstructed the deck. I don't have the lands. I gave them back to the store. But I actually started out trying to get Celestia, trying to go green, white, and splashing red. But it became apparent after the first draft pack that everyone else was going to be taking the green and white cards. So I started taking red, then I noticed most of the black cards were getting passed over too. So I decided just to go straight red, black, and I got a lot of good picks. If you have not played draft, it's something you need to try. And I'll explain a little bit as I go along. But really, that's a whole nother video or a whole nother article. So what's really important in draft is over here on my left I have creatures. Okay, you want a creature base that's very strong because a lot of spells, unless they're absolutely amazing spells, are not going to win you the game. You want to have somewhere between 15 to 18 creatures in your deck, preferably, creatures that you can realistically cast. Okay, so creatures that aren't, yes, it's good to have a bomb that costs 6 mana or something, but most of your creatures should be something that's a little bit more realistic in the 2 to 4 mana range. You want to have about the same amount of lands, 15, 18 lands, depending on what your mana curve is and that kind of thing. Probably realistically don't want to go over 17. And you want to just have about 6 or so spells. Now if your spells are incredibly powerful removal, you could up that to a little bit more. But in general, you don't want to have more than a handful of non-creature spells. So let's start here at the bottom of the mana curve. Rakdos Cackler. This is something I ended up being a pretty late pick. No one took it. And what's great about this card is it's got split mana cost, so you can play with red or black. Alright, it's got 1/1 Unleashed, so you can play it as turn 1 as a 2/2. And no, it can't block, but getting a 2/2 on turn 1 is great. Even if they play a 2/2 their next turn, or a 3/2, and you trade creatures with it, you only paid 1 mana for yours, so it's a better investment. Great card. And of course, if you top deck this late game, you could just play it as a 1/1 and have a chump blocker. Here, Grim Roustabout. 2 for 1/1 Unleashed, similar to the other guy, except you can regenerate him, which makes it interesting. If you have some kind of creature enchantment that can make him bigger, you can swing in Unleashed every turn with a 2/2 and then maybe add +2/+1 or something like that to it. And then when they block and throw away chump blockers, you can regenerate. Or you can just not unleash him at all, either early game or late game, and use him as a chump blocker that can always regenerate. Great. Here we actually have an Izzet card, the Frostburn Weird, but because the split mana cost allows you to play either blue or red, I'm like, alright, I'll just draft it for red only. And it's a 1/4 body for 2 mana, which is absolutely great because there are so many 3/2, 1, 2, and 3 power creatures in this format, and in the whole expansion in general. So it can block all day long, but if you get out early game, it's got the extra benefit, or late game, for 1 red mana, you can pump it +1, -1. So you can make it a 2/3, you can pay another mana to make it a 3/2, or you can pay another one for 3 mana total to make it a 4/1 and swing in for 4 damage. Going down the mana curve, still staying at 2 mana here. Another 1/1 Flying Lifelink. Again, not an amazing card, but if they don't have any flyers, you just get free life all day. Okay, so you get free life, you get free damage through, and you can chump block and gain life. So indispensable. And again, here's another great thing about this. Easy to cast. 1/1 black. You only need 1 black. So it's not 2 black or anything like that. You can usually drop him on turn 2. And that is important, especially because you're not really constructing a deck. Thrill Kill Assassin, I'm a big fan of this card for a couple reasons. 2 with Unleash and Death Touch. So you can drop this turn 2 as a 2/3 beater. Okay, swing in 2/3 beater. They can't block it with their 0/4 walls because Death Touch will kill them. So it's basically free damage. Or late game, if they have something scary, you could drop this as a 1/2, not Unleashed, and just use the Death Touch to make it a really deadly chump blocker. The other thing I love about this card is the art. You just got this scary looking chick who just looks like she's going to murder people, and the flavor text. As the bounty on Massacre Girl arose, so did the number of imitators. So apparently in Ravnica somewhere, there is someone famous known as Massacre Girl, okay? And I'm really hoping that we see in the third expansion, the third part of the block, we see a Massacre Girl legend, because that is just going to be absolutely epic. I just think it's funny to just make up a character named Massacre Girl that is not a card yet, but could be a card later. Here we have a 2 mana for split black red 2/1 haste shred Rakdos Shred Freak. It's just a solid beater. If you get this in turn 2, alright, just imagine you play the Cackler turn 1, it's a 2/2. Turn 2 you drop this guy, it's a 2/1 haste, you swing for 4 on turn 2, and unless they can stop you, they're going to be dead in 5 turns. So easy card to play. It's not great late game. It's really just a chump blocker. It does not have Unleash, but it's got the easy mana cost, and it gets easy damage in. So there you go. I drafted Sewer Shambler, and this was a late pick. This is actually a Golgari card. It's 3 for 2/1. It's got Swamp Walk and Scavenge. Swamp Walk was great because even though I was picking a lot of black cards, I knew it was highly probable at least one of my opponents would be playing Swamps, so it's unblockable if they have Swamps. And the Scavenge, so Scavenge is not great, but the Scavenge cost is low. It's 3 mana. I didn't actually end up using it in any match, but for 3 mana, you exile this from your graveyard once it's dead, and then you get to put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. So that was pretty versatile. Unfortunately, I didn't get to use it. There you go. Haha, Gutter Snipe. Now, Gutter Snipe, I was on the fence about because even though this card is very good, just like I said before, you don't tend to run a lot of instants and sorceries in draft. So I was like, how much damage am I really going to get through with this? But then I thought, well, it's free damage, and it's easy to cast because it's only got 1 red and cast. It costs a 2/2 body. And this actually ended up winning me several games. It ended up winning several games. And obviously it's probably better in Constructed where you can build a whole deck around him, whether it's burn or counter burn or some other kind of control deck where you just lay back and let this guy do the damage. Great card. Definitely consider this as a pick. Alright? Oh, that's probably what I should have been saying all along. Like, which card should you definitely pick? Gutter Snipe is up there, but it really depends what else you've drafted. If you're running like red-green or red-white or something, you don't think you're going to have a lot of instant sorceries, it's not a great pick. Something like Thrill Kill Assassin is always versatile. Something like Frostburn Weird is always versatile. Okay? Gutter Snipe, I would say, I would give it a 3.5 out of 5 in terms of should you definitely pick it. Now this is a pretty strong card, Splatter Thug. So it's 3, and you saw I got 2 of them, for a 2/2 first strike Unleash, which is great. That means you can drop this guy on turn 3 as a 3/3 first strike that can't block. Absolutely brutal. You can also, if you're on the offense, there's nothing better to drop than that. That puts so much pressure on your opponent. If you're on the defense, 3 for 2/2 first strike is nothing to laugh at. There's lots of creatures in this block that have 2 toughness. There's even a creature that I believe is a 5/2 creature. There even may be a 6/1 creature if I remember correctly. So getting the 2/2 first strike could be a great defensive creature. So this is very versatile. And yet I don't see a lot of people drafting them. I did get 2, and I saw even other ones going around that got passed multiple times. Here's a star for draft Lobber Crew. I pulled 3 of them. It's 3 for 0/4 Defender. So this thing is not attacking, but you can tap it to deal 1 damage to each opponent. Now it's really just going to be 1 opponent in most of these formats, okay? And then whenever you cast a multicolored spell, untap Lobber Crew. Every now and then that just means you're going to get 1 extra damage through when you cast a multicolored spell, alright? There are some other card interactions that you could possibly have, but I'm not going to go into detail. It's going to take too long. But the point of the matter is this. On turn 3, you drop a 0/4 wall, and it's not just a wall. It's basically they can't deal with this. They're going to take an extra damage every turn. Or if you get all 3 of these, they're going to be taking 3 damage a turn. And whenever you get a multicolored spell, they're taking extra damage. So it's really cool in that regard, and it just forces your opponent to do something. And in most circumstances, they can't directly kill the wall because 0/4. Alright? Ogre Jailbreaker. Now this is, I was like thinking maybe this wasn't a great pick. It's 4 mana for 4/4 Defender. It can attack, although it doesn't have Defender as long as you control a gate. But the problem is this. I didn't draft any gates. I really wanted a gate. No one ever passed one to me. At least not a playable gate. So for the most part, I was playing this guy as a 4/4 wall. Not bad. It definitely kept people off. And I had this guy with Defender, and then I had the Lobber Crew. So they pretty much couldn't attack because I have this big blocker. And then come in with Lobber Crew and deal damage. That guy was at 4 mana cost. I skipped a 3 here. Viashino Racketeer. 3 for 2/1. Alright, when it comes into battlefield, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. So actually, what I ended up doing with this guy, a couple of times I played him on turn 3. Then I discarded, like, if I had too many lands in my hand, I discarded 1 and drew a card. But most of the time, I would just hold him in my hand. I'd play because all these other things are 2-3 mana cost. I'd hold him in my hand, play everything else first. And then by the time that he came into play, when I cast him on turn like 5 or 6 or 7, I was just really holding one extra land or holding some card I didn't need, or I wanted to see what the board position was, so then I would have a better idea of what to discard, and then when I drew a card, it was more valuable. So, interesting pick. Now, the next two cards I want to show you, I was a little more on the fence on, but I pretty much had to take them because I was running out of options. I have Spawn of Rick's Maddie. It's 5 for 5/3, and you can unleash it. So in some games, this won me the game because I could cast him on turn 5 as a 6/4 creature. Okay. Other games it lost me a game because I didn't get to 5 mana quickly enough, or I got to 5 mana but I still didn't hit a swamp or a mountain, which obviously wasn't particularly common, but it did happen one game. I'm on the fence about this guy. I feel like if you have mana fixing, it's better, or if you can pull a key rune or anything like that to ramp up to 5. But if you have to play him, he's still a good beats. If you have good removal, it's good because you can get him through the enemy lines. And this guy tromps all over walls. They can't just chump block with 0/4. I mean, they can, but they're going to start losing cards quick. Finally, and this was a lot better of a card than I gave it credit for, Street Sweeper. 6, 4, 6. Whenever it attacks, you destroy all auras attached to target land. So the ability is garbage, alright? There are a lot of land auras in this. There are a couple that are good, but the odds are your opponent won't be drafting them or playing them seriously. But really what's great about this card is two things. One is it's 6 mana and 6 colorless, so it doesn't matter what color combination you have. You can play this no matter what decks you're playing, no matter what colors you're playing. If you're playing a multicolored deck, if you're just playing straight red, which I don't think is going to happen too much in Return to Ravnica, but if you were just playing straight red, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this, but any multicolored decks, 2, 3, 4 colors, you don't have to worry about the colors. You can get a 4/6 creature no matter what. It is 6 mana, whatever. Secondly, it's a 4/6. And you notice before that there's a lot of walls, there's a lot of defenders. This guy's got 4 toughness. This guy's got 4 toughness. There's a lot of creatures in this block with 4 toughness. It has 4 power, which is enough to kill them, and got 6 toughness to win against them in combat. So it forces some tough decisions for your opponent on the block, and it holds back. It's a great defender as well. Alright, let's go over to the non-creature spells. First, I pull Street Spasm. I didn't get to play this I only got to play this in one match. It's X and 1 red instant. Deals X damage to target creature with flying you don't control. You can overload it for an insane amount of mana. That's just not going to happen. Because think about it. You want to overload for 1. That's going to be 4 mana to deal 1 damage to each of your opponent's creatures, which is a little expensive. You want to do 3 damage to each of your opponent's creatures, it's going to cost 8 mana. Now, you will hit that sometimes in a draft, but I really just took Street Spasm for their normal X and 1 red casting cost. And it's versatile, so I guess if you did hit it, or if they had 1,000,000 tokens, you had the option. But, great removal. Down here, we got Mind Rot. Target player discards 2 cards. And I find that this is almost better in draft than it is in constructed sometimes, because a lot of times people get mana screwed or color screwed in draft, and they're just sitting waiting for 1 land. They got 2 bombs in their hand, like really nasty things like Niv Mizzet or other legends, and you just want to wait. You don't want to cast this on turn 3. You want to wait till your opponent has 2 or 3 cards in hand, and then just make them empty their whole hand. So whatever they were planning to do is not going to happen. Augur Spree. This is absolutely brutal for 2 reasons. One is it just kills everything, like I said before. +4, -4, there's tons of creatures with 4 toughness. This pretty much kills everything. This might as well say 1 black, 1 red, destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated, because you can't regenerate from having less than 0 toughness. It's an instant, it's fairly cheap, alright? And I was using this to activate Gutter Snipe, I was using this to activate Labra Crew. And in theory, I wanted to use on Street Sweeper, so I could have given this +4, -4. If they chose not to block it, hit them for 8 damage. But mainly I used it to kill other people's creatures. Okay? Then over here we got Traitorous Instinct, 3 and 1 red. You gain control of a creature, it gets +2/+0 and haste. What was great about Traitorous Instinct was just, it fucks up your opponent's math. So they'll leave back 2 blockers, like, well, as long as I can chump block 2 creatures, I'll live 1 more turn. Nope! Because I'm stealing 1 creatures and it's going to deal extra damage to you. You could use this on creatures that have a sacrifice effect to steal them and then sacrifice their creature. You could even use this on your own creature, just to give it +2/+0 till the end of turn and swing in for extra damage. Like, you could give it to your imp and then make it a 3/1 flying and swing in, deal 2 extra damage that they can't block, gain 3 life. So it's a really versatile card. Again, not great and constructed, but for a very creature-heavy format, this thing is good. I wouldn't call this a first pick. I would call Augur Spree a really good pick, okay? Street Spasm's a good pick. Mind Rot, I could go either way on it. But here's a card you must always draft. If you get this in draft, you must draft it, and that is Stab Wound, alright? Stab Wound is by far, okay, it's got some of the worst art in the set. Like, she just looks like she's like putting her hand on her hip like, really? Really? That's the birthday present you bought me? Like, really? You forgot her anniversary again, hun? Like, she doesn't... I guess she's been stabbed, but it really just looks like her hands are dirty, and she just looks kind of disappointed in you. Anyway, why is she so disappointed? Because Enchanted Creature gets -2/-2, alright. And then at the beginning of the upkeep of Enchanted Creature's controller, that player loses 2 life. So if you cast this on turn 3 on one of their walls, they have like a 0/6 wall or something like that. Okay, you cast this on anything with more than 2 toughness, they have 10 turns to get rid of it. They have 10 turns, they're on a 10-turn clock. If they can't get rid of Stab Wound or the creature it's on, they lose in 10 turns. You could also use it as removal. You can cast this on anything with toughness 2 or less, alright, to just kill it outright. So they got some creature that you can't deal, like they have Gutter Snipe, alright, it's giving you a hard time, just kill it right away for 3 mana, alright. And you could also cast it on something that you just can't deal with, like, power-wise. So if they have a Thrill Kill Assassins and they unleash it, it's 2/3, you cast Stab Wound on it, all of a sudden it's a 0/1 creature. It cannot do damage, it cannot use its Death Touch ability, so it's worthless, it can't attack you, and they're going to be taking 2 damage for the rest of the game. So I was absolutely shocked that anyone passed up 2 Stab Wounds. They made it to me. There were some matches where I got both of them in play, and the person was like at still 16 life, and they're like, alright, I give up, you win the match, because I have nothing that can deal with that. So how do I actually do in my draft with this deck? I had 2 wins, alright? So I had 2 wins where I pretty much just bowled the other person over. I had 1 loss where someone else actually, who was not in my draft pool, who was in the other draft pool, drafted almost an identical deck to me. So they had a lot of the same cards, they had a couple Labra Crews, they had a Viashino Racketeer, they had Augur Spree, they had Stab Wound. So that was an interesting game, but that guy ultimately beat me. And then I went with Captain Decoy to the draft, and I played against him. And we tied. So the whole match ended up with me having 1 win, him having 1 win, and the last match we ran out of time. And I feel like he would have won, but it really was in top deck mode then. If I had pulled some, like an Augur Spree or Trader's Instinct as my last card, I possibly could have won. I did have a Stab Wound on one of his guys, but he had guys I couldn't block. So, it really could have gone either way. So ultimately, I did not take home a prize. I didn't go to the top 4 of the finals. It was really close. If I had just, who knows? If I had just gotten, 1 extra damage through to the guy that I lost to, or if, if we didn't run out of time when I was playing against Captain Decoy, then possibly I would have won. But guys, I just wanted to give you an idea of what I was doing here. And if you have more interest in Paper Magic, I will talk about Paper Magic. I'm working on a standard Counterburn deck. As you guys know, I played Counterburn for on and off for almost 13 years now. So if you're interested in seeing what I'm thinking about that, I'll write an article about it on TopTierTactics.com. I could do a video about it. But I'd like to play test the deck a little and just work out a couple of kinks I'm working on. But in the interim, I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope you'll stop by TopTierTactics.com. And I hope you'll consider some of the recommendations today that I made. When you're playing Limited or Draft, I guess the Draft is Limited. When you're playing Draft with Return to Ravnica. Alright? Cheers!